There's here, Priscilla and Jason. We have some folks from the office. We have Brianne Fisher and, Wendy Fuster and Kendra Norell and David Sale. I assume a few more will be joining us, but let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. We are recording this for everyone who can't be here. We have a couple who this time just doesn't work for them, so they will watch this at a later date. And we're just asking for all the feedback to be um, received by close of business on the following Monday. So today we're going to be talking about drafting objectives, and I'm really looking forward to getting your input. So go ahead and change your names. I'm going to do that too. Um, oh, it's hard to do while I'm sharing. I'll have to do it in a little later. So you know who I am, Dawn Alexi. Um, but go ahead and change your name so we all know who's who. And today's agenda is settling in and quickly going through those ground rules that we've talked about each time. We're going to review the proposed plan structure. We're going to review what inputs are being looked at going into the plan as we're starting to make decisions. And the discussion today is going to be the pathways to climate action and resilience goals. We'll go through those pathways together and get your buy-in. And then we're going to have a discussion on the objectives specifically related to waste. So that's going to be the majority of the meeting today. We're going to go into breakouts and do kind of a round robin. So I think you'll all enjoy participating in that, and we're really looking forward to getting your feedback and input. So those objectives, obviously reviewing the structure, reviewing the key inputs, and then getting your input on the draft pathways and objectives. That's the goal of today. So as we do go into those breakouts, this is your time. You're giving us your valuable time, and we are really grateful for that. So we want to make sure that it's useful for you by having your say. So please take this time to be present and participate, be additive. I think that this exercise we're doing is, it's a really great way to do that, because you're going to be putting your comments on an objective, and then when you get moved to a different facilitator, you're going to be building on the comments from the previous group. So it's a great way to be additive and not repetitive. We are aiming for consensus, especially specifically when we talk about the pathway. We want to get everyone's buy-in. That's what our pathway is for waste. And then we're all open. We are listening to each other, and we're speaking from our own lived experience. So please, you have a valuable say that that is only represented by you. So please speak to where you're coming from. You're representing a lot of stakeholders in the city of Richmond. And of course, the Language 101, define acronyms and new terms. I, I think that when it comes to engagement and communications and getting buy-in, that is just so essential, that we're all learning from each other and we're making sure that everyone truly understands, because a lot of this is semantics. And as we review climate action plans from other localities and resilience plans and equity plans, not everyone, but a lot of terms are used differently. And so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that we're making sure that anyone who uses this plan understands what we're getting at. So please speak up and define terms, ask the dumb questions, because we all know that there is no such thing as a dumb question. So in terms of the structure, the goals are answering the question, what are the long-term aims that we want to accomplish? And the vision for RVAgreen 2050 is, what does the ideal future look like when this plan is implemented. The community priorities, we talked a lot about that back in December. Those are the built into the equity tool. So the question that answers is, what cross-cutting public values do we want to center in our plan? And then the pathways are what leverage points will lead us towards realizing and operationalizing the goals and community priorities. And just to be clear, we're calling them pathways. Up until now, that's what the working groups have been divided into. So our pathway at the moment is waste. That's not a great, like, do we want to define that a little more? Or does that say it all? Is that a bucket that just says it all? We'll talk about that in a little bit. The objectives that we're going to spend time on today are, what are the long-term aims that we want to accomplish organized into the waste pathway. And then under that, and we'll talk more later about the difference between objectives and strategies, and we'll get to the strategies next time, but what are the SMARTY actions that will lead us toward our objectives? And of course, how are we going to implement and measure progress and ensure accountability in this plan? So back up to the goals. Those have been defined through the resolution that was passed by City Council last June. We have two climate action goals. The first one is to achieve a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 from the 2008 baseline. And the second one is to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. On the climate resilience side, the goal is to prepare for, adapt, and improve the City of Richmond's resilience to the local impacts of climate change. And we've talked a lot about that, and you've seen the newspaper articles and the vulnerability and risk assessment that we went through last time. That's really getting at the climate resilience piece of this. So as we're starting to talk more about the content of the plan, just remember that this is an equity-centered plan. We're really building equity into every objective and strategy we come up with, and climate, it's an integrated approach. So climate resilience and climate action are being considered with every objective and with every strategy. And there might not always be climate action strategies and resilience in every single action, but we're thinking that through repetitively. Okay, so then the vision is what the round table drafted, and then it went through all the working groups, and then with your feedback, they refined it some more. So this is where it stands now. All Richmonders, regardless of their identity or neighborhood, thrive in a climate resilient and climate neutral community. And so those supporting principles, I just kind of bolded the lines that jumped out at me. Well-being, local ecosystems, and economic vitality are balanced. Equitable access across the entire city to resources. Everyone has the ability and resources to take ownership, and we lead with race in our work to transform systems. So those four supporting principles in their entirety are kind of helping to explain what that vision statement is getting at. So on to the community priorities. Again, this is what public values do we want reflected in our policies. And we've talked about these again back in the December meeting, and this is what the equity tool is going to be pulling out in all of our activities. And then where we are today. So did I skip over something? No. All right, so where we are today. The goals we have defined, the vision is defined, the community priorities are defined, and now we're on the pathways. So we have 5 working groups that are separated into buildings and energy, transportation, waste, environment, and community. And so this is what we want you to be thinking about today. For waste, well, I'll go ahead and read the descriptions of each of those. Buildings and energy, the description for that working group is accelerate the equitable transition to healthy, resilient, climate neutral buildings and energy sources. And then for transportation, they'll be meeting later today, accelerate the transition to clean and equitable mobility systems. Right now, the description for this work group or pathway is eliminate our dependency on landfill disposal and foster sustainable consumption habits. Environment is invest in ecosystem resilience, regeneration, and conservation. And the community group's description is create an equitable, healthy, prosperous, and resilient Richmond for all while ensuring focus and honoring community priorities. The only one that has been confirmed so far is the buildings and energy. They did a little bit of editing yesterday, and that's where they ended up on their description. So with that, we are going to discuss right now this draft pathway. First of all, waste. Does that say what we want it to say, or is there a better term? Is there a better description for, up until now, it's been the working group, but if we're calling it a pathway in our plan, what do we want to call that kind of umbrella term? And then what do you think about that statement? Eliminate our dependency on landfill disposal and foster sustainable consumption habits. So this is your time. I would love for you guys to unmute yourself and speak up, and we'll have a discussion about your thoughts. What do you like? What don't you like? What's missing?
Dawn, I generally am fine with that statement. I hate to work backwards here, but I kind of got stuck on the progression, in community priorities. And I guess, certainly under environment as a pathway, we are addressing conservation and things. But to me, under community priorities or just within the plan itself, we've missed on natural resources and infrastructure. There's no mention of parks, rivers, water quality, that sort of thing. I just wanted to point that one thing out.
Yep, great question. And all of those are being discussed in the environment work group. So,
but there was no mention, nothing really leads into that from community priorities. That was my point.
Brian, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So the community priorities those came from literally what we heard from the community, what their priorities are. Specifically, we focused on communities that are on the front lines of climate change. Dawn, I don't know if you want to go back to that slide, but you can see more about each of the community priorities. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Green space and natural resources is included, although it's not obvious, in the neighborhoods community priorities. So for that one, we heard a lot about, safe neighborhoods, beautiful neighborhoods, which includes access to things like green space and natural resources. And then we will be talking, as Dawn said, about natural resources as, a key part of the plan within the environment group. But these community priorities, again, we did our listening sessions, and this was mostly the work of Kendra Norell, our community engagement coordinator, last summer. When we launched the planning process for RVAgreen 2050, we were asking the community what their priorities are just generally, so that we can make sure that this plan, which is climate and environment focused, would address those things. So that's where those came from.
Okay.
I've already got like I said earlier, an issue with reduce organic wastes.
We're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
We're focusing on just the pathway. So right now, is this what you want to call our pathway? Is waste? And is this the statement that best describes what we're trying to accomplish?
So I don't like the word waste at all.
Okay, what do you want to call that?
I would call it a resource or an input.
I think we need to be careful that when we use words like that, that doesn't resonate with the community when we go out talk about this. One of the things that we heard from the social justice roundtable over and over and over again is that the members of the community immediately are putting up walls and telling us this when they hear even phrases like green space. They don't even know what that means. So instead of making using terms that are terms of art, we need to make sure that the terms we're using are terms that anyone in the city can understand without having to sit down and talk about this with one of us.
Oh, I get that.
So
I could use refinement, I'm sure. But when we think about waste as something that goes away. And if we're building, reduce, reuse, recycle world, there is no waste. And I think maybe the word waste deserves a little bit more consideration. And I'll leave my thoughts there.
great point. It could be-
I would agree.
who said that?
I was thinking if we could say something in layman's terms, referring to a cyclical, what do you call it? Not environment, but the more cyclical recycling or economy.
Circular
Is that
economy.
Kind of
Right.
say the same
Right.
thing. Eliminate, and I'm not sure how that resonates with the public, but I know all of you know what I'm referring to.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I think with Al and everybody else that waste is probably not the most descriptive or the most helpful pathway title, and that we definitely need to take into consideration and have something about recycling, or that sort of sustainable, continuous
Mhm.
cycle. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to
Well, I
phrase
think
that myself.
under the objectives, that will be that circular economy concept is definitely really important for the objectives. And I think at this level for the pathway, what I'm hearing is it could be something like zero waste. It could be waste.
Excess resources. I don't know.
That one. That's the word I came up as a replacement, was resource.
Excess resources, but then are people thinking, does that mean money? Does that mean human
Right.
capital?
Well, that's a capitalist narrow way of thinking.
Then back to Jeannie, like it can't be so nondescript that
No.
know where we're talking about trash.
I mean, when you say excess resources to the general public, they're going to be thinking water, electricity,
Right.
and resources. Yeah, I don't know about that.
So we want to shift a paradigm without shifting the paradigm.
So let me.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying there.
So the issue that we all know, at least this group understands that we're trying to move towards zero waste, right? We understand that. And therefore, everything that we see through rose-colored resource lenses. The community sees those things. All they see through the resource lens is food, water, shelter, trees, stuff like that. So how do we make trash sound appealing if we're not going to use the word resource? Then what is it?
Well, let me
What about the
suggest
word
something.
material? Maybe wasted material? And because we're dealing with the problem of wasted material.
Well, I guess I mean, I agree that we need to be forward thinking in the way that we present things, but we have to bring awareness to what it is first. And I think you need to be straightforward. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, are we talking about the pathway name being a grand marketing thing that we're going to march forward with, and this is all we're going to talk about? Because if we want to get down to brass tacks of what we are talking about, and it's committees and bunches of different organizations, it's solid waste and recycling. I mean, when you're in a community, that's what we're dealing with. And those are the people that deal with the issues around solid waste of all kinds in all locations, and the recycling of materials that are allowed to be recycling. Now, are we working towards zero waste? Absolutely. And that should be the big thing with zero emissions. But I think our pathway needs to describe exactly what we're doing so that when people see us in the hierarchy, that they know that this is being addressed, and not in a way of resources. We need to shift our mind and think of resources as this. We're not there yet. We got a lot of not teaching, just awareness. We've got a lot of that to do, and maybe I am missing the boat, and that this is going to be a marketing thing. But if it's a working document and describing what we're doing, I think it's solid
Yeah.
waste and recycling.
These are all great points, and I don't think there's any one right answer, but I will tell you, Newport News switched their convenience centers, their recycling centers, and they now call them resource recovery centers because they really are working towards that zero waste. So it is a term that I get what Jason's saying, but I also hear that we need to speak to people where they are now as well. So
Can we
I'm
just
hearing-
add resource after waste, waste resources?
Okay, so I'm hearing things like material recovery, resource recovery, zero waste, solid waste and recycling, waste resources, circular economy.
Waste reduction is one, yeah, in the chat.
So as I look at Newport News' stuff, and like you said, Recovery Operations Center, it's amazing. I also want to applaud you all for giving the general public more credit than some of them have. And that is not me being mean, but I think that a lot of the words that we're using, like you said, are going to go over people's heads. I think that recovery is a good word for resources. Waste recovery or resource waste or something to that nature will be a good thing.
Right.
And then and if you get down to the point of, I think eliminating our dependency on landfill disposal and foster sustainable consumption habits makes complete sense to me. John Q. Public, they're gonna look at it and just ignore it and keep moving and not realize that we're only saying, how can we lower the amount of waste that we have? But I think the recovery, using the word recovery of resources or resource recovery, or somebody put it in the chat, and I thought that was, where's that? Was it say? Where was it? You guys are awesome. You're in there getting it. David, yes, the waste reduction, or something of that nature, which I feel covers a lot more than just trash. But we, like you said, like Jason said, we have to figure out how we can encompass it all without saying too much or putting such big words in there that people are going, oh yeah, whatever. Because I think that's the key, whether it's internally or externally, is not losing the focus on what it is and how can we say it easy enough. Like you said, simple as waste reduction, people know what it is. And as we get further into 2025 and everyone's fostered the new concept of this is a resource recovery, or maybe it's waste reduction, and then underneath, the little tagline underneath, it could be resource recovery. That way they know it's coming, but they've seen the big words up top saying waste reduction. And now we can start introducing resource recovery, or what was the other one that Newport used that I thought was really cute? The eco ATM, those type of things underneath, as the byline, I guess would be the word underneath the title. That way people are thinking about the next step, and we're introducing it as we're telling them this is what it is. but it's also resource recovery. And now they're seeing it all, they get it all. And so as time goes and you switch just to resource recovery, we're not introducing a new concept later on. They've already gotten adapted and comfortable to it.
What about waste reduction and diversion? I mean, diversion is a word that kind of sends it in a different direction other than, I think, landfill, but maybe not. So we're dealing with the reduction overall and then the diversion, still too narrow.
Excuse me, I kind of like reduction and recovery because that's what we're actually aiming for. Reducing the waste, but then recycling it too. So make it simple and make it understandable to the general public. So by saying reduction and recovery, I think it really is encompassing what we're trying to accomplish.
And I think we have to focus on what we feel that this area is ready for. I know a lot of areas, New York and that are using words like recovery and they have prior branding. And that may be what Priscilla is referring to. If we can prepare the public, our public, for what we want to call it, we have to start somewhere. And somewhere that somewhere could be it could be material recovery, resource recovery, or somewhere around that. But I'd like to hear from the group. What do you think how prepared is this area? I can tell you we do the city of Richmond does recycle. So there is an awareness out there that may not be in the general proximity, but there is an elevated awareness. So maybe we can jump in at higher level discussions or just descriptions. But where do we feel we are on that? What's the public ready for in this area?
Seeing a few votes and comments for waste reduction and recovery in the chat.
Question, are we talking about that still in terms of what the name of the pathway would be called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this pathway is the direction towards the 2050 goal. So if it's zero emissions, that's our goal. Resiliency, and this will be revisited every 5 years. A lot's going to happen in the next 30 years. So we want to make sure that whatever this pathway is working towards that goal, using the language that'll get us there. So I can't see the chat with my view. I'm sorry.
I can. Okay. Priscilla had proposed waste reduction and recovery. Jason seemed to like that with the WR squared branding. Katrina liked it. Heather agrees. Kelsey likes it. Sharon agrees. So far. Ditto for L.
Yeah, me. Yeah.
So is it, if there's anyone that doesn't like it, could you give me a thumbs down? Great. All right. Consensus. I love it. Y'all are awesome. What
We
a
democracied.
great group. All right.
Okay, so waste reduction and recovery.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, let's move on. So now that we have
I'm sorry, Don. So what would the phrase look like? It would just, are we saying, or you're gonna just redefine that later?
No. If we
Just
want
wanna
to change
say-
that, let's do that now. Eliminate our dependency on landfill disposal and foster sustainable consumption habits. Do we want to change that?
So it'll say that what was, it'll say eliminate waste reduction. I forgot what the.
No, the title. So the pathway is waste reduction and recovery. And then
Oh,
kind of the tagline that'll go with that to explain what we're doing.
So now we're looking at the green portion there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's just kind of the pathway mission, what we're going for in this specific pathway.
So, question. Eliminating the bigger words, I'm here for that. Is feasible and sustainable. I feel like they work well together, but I don't know which one is more edible. Like, what can people chew and not choke on? Words that people can chew and not choke on. I think that's what I'm looking at. Landfill disposal and foster feasible consumption habits, or livable consumption habits, continual consumption habits.
Are you saying you don't like the word sustainable?
I feel it's a big word.
I feel like that word is already holds strength
Okay.
in the world that over the word feasible, because when you say feasible, it gives people immediate reason to doubt.
Okay. And that's why we have these conversations, right?
What if we explained it further though? Foster, you know, what's another word for sustainable? Is it green and
Supportable. Because clearly I pulled up all the synonyms.
That's where the circular economy stuff kind of comes in.
Viable.
I really don't like the word consumption because that puts together like two opposing thoughts, but I guess that's the point here. I mean, like living under capitalism, we are a consumption-based like society, and sustainability and consumption aren't really the same thing. That's why those words appear to look good together for whoever wrote this final statement, but it still has all the holes that that Priscilla's pointing out.
So maybe that's what it is, Jason. One of those two words don't go together.
I have a suggestion: low waste habits.
I like the fact actually that sustainable is double meaning there. Sustainable is green, and sustainable means that I can manage it and I can maintain it and I can sustain it and I can do it. It's accessible. I understand it. I think it has great, beautiful double meaning. I've always liked that word.
I mean, just without consumption in there.
I was going to say that I think that, like, you know, talking about sustainable consumption habits, okay, that it's fine to mention something like that in your tagline, but to me, it's more of an objective. It's kind of like a whole education program in and of itself. And I mean, like, and then there are other pieces of that, like, you know, that aren't included in here, such as fostering technologies, which move us towards, you know, actually being able to recycle more effectively, to deal with the materials that aren't being recycled at all, and moving towards zero waste, eliminating waste.
I like where you're going with that, and I actually have a little bit of a issue with eliminate our dependency on landfill disposal, because what if that could just mean shifting to incineration? You know,
Right.
maybe we need to restate the beginning, and then the second part would kind of not be as much of a problem.
But as opposed, as I, you know, historically have been my entire career to incineration, you know, that doesn't mean it's off the table from, you know, if the technology can be refined. You know, if it is the in-between gap thing, we don't want to invest, you know, our resources in it necessarily when we're moving towards, you know, an even better solution. But it doesn't mean, you know, it couldn't be something that would help if we could deal with the emissions part of it effectively.
So as a former science teacher, I like to use if and then statements, not even if we're using the actual if and then. If we eliminate our dependency on landfill disposal, then we can foster sustainable consumption habits. That's kind of what the statement is, right? Great. Okay. So another way to eliminate or foster or something our dependency on landfill disposal. And then by doing, we use foster there, but anyway, so basically we want to figure out how we can stop using landfills and find better ways to consume, better consumption habits, wasting less and reusing more. That's what Sharon just put in the chat, and it popped up as I was saying it. So yeah, I think that's what we're looking for. Another way of saying not using less landfill, more ways to not use it. I don't know. I'm getting stuck. My mind went, "Phew," but I was on it at first. Somebody can pick up that what I just put down and figure that out because I lost my thought.
I sent it a message to Jean, but I meant to send it to everybody. I was just writing fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction.
Yeah, for some reason, all my messages to everyone keep like changing and going just to you. So if you see that and I don't fix it, send me back a message that says
Okay.
it came just to me again. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but
I heard a recommendation. What was it?
What was it? Who from who?
You just said it. You wanna say-
Fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction.
Fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction.
Correct.
Is there anyone who would like to just, are there any no's?
no, that's perfect because it leaves us open for the future. And if the new technologies emerge or we find that old technologies are now more sustainable, that leaves us the freedom as a city entity and as a community to embrace whatever that might be in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, all the way up to 2050.
There are also a couple of votes for wasting less and reusing more.
Mm.
So John Q. Public, I think wasting less, reusing more works. I also think that fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction works for the bigger hierarchy picture of, when we get our Nobel Peace Prize, that's kind of what we need to have in there. Fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction, with my Siri voice, but
So maybe we combine them. So maybe we have fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction dash wasting less and reusing more, or something.
Yeah, literally like resulting in wasting less and reusing more, or
even just like working, dash. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Just waste less, reuse more. That's the hashtag. Waste less, reuse more. WRM.
WR squared and WRLM.
Cool kids that recycle.
Quick clarification, if I may, please. When this thing that we're crafting, is this going to go on the side of city buses? Where is this showing up?
So it's going to be in the climate action plan that we're going to have published and put out.
Put out where?
Oh, like as a city, we have a Richmond 300, we have the RVA H2O. So these different city plans, this will be a city plan. But then in terms of all those, how do we get it out in the community and how do we do our engagement? Maybe that is a strategy. What we're saying is we come up with some great graphics and, but
yeah, the tagline.
Yeah.
So if we're only preaching to the choir and people who are involved in here and people in the city, shouldn't we be more concise?
I think we need to be very general. This is the people we're trying, the stakeholders in this group, we're the ones who are going to be integrating it into all of our work priorities and our community engagement priorities going forward. We have people from nonprofits, we have people representing different citizen groups, we have different city agencies. So we're all going to be taking this and using it in our own ways to get the word out. But we certainly want to come up with a statement that kind of speaks to everyone, remembering that equity is at the center of this and those community priorities. So I think we're almost there. We do have to move on to objectives, so we have enough time to get through those. But I do want to reach consensus on this. Right now, I have fostering sustainable methods of waste reduction dash waste more reuse, waste less, reuse more.
I think that says it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm good with it, though I think it's redundant.
I like combining them because we took out habits. Habits is like the call, the charge to the individual. If just using fostering sustainable methods of waste, the individual might be lost from that. So adding the waste less, reuse more, it's calling on, people as well and being, accountable for our own habits.
Right.
Do you think we should add ing to waste and reuse?
No. Because, it's too, no, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
There's
And I
no
wouldn't be opposed to adding the ing. I don't know if we need it.
Active.
It's
Is-
like poking you. It's like, do
Right.
this,
Okay.
waste less, reuse more.
Is fostering too complex a word? Perhaps maybe just supporting?
I wondered that too, but it also gets the point across, like the word that it is.
I think foster is a
Oh, you're muted, Priscilla.
I hit it and then I started talking before I realized I didn't hit it. I think foster is a good word because I feel like people know what fostering is on all levels. If you're fostering a child, if you're fostering an animal, meaning you're taking something in and claiming it as your own for as long as you can, because it could be forever or it could be temporary. But fostering is taking it in. I think encouraging is a synonym, but that works too. Encouraging those things, that's a happy word, a happy adjective. No, not adjective. Whatever the verb, it's a verb.
I'm gonna vote for fostering in the end.
Yeah, I think it's good. Jason, did you see let me see. Did you see Wendy's comment, Jason?
With the ing?
Yeah, I keep
Yes.
tweaking it as you guys make more suggestions. So
I'm trying to find the like button.
I'm just displaying what you guys talk about. So
And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I like the ing.
Yeah.
In the theater, as actors who are trained, and this is, I've found over the years that this is applicable to everything in life. But when an actor is going through a script and deciding what it is they are doing in this script, they always break it down into actionable, like a big objective, a super objective, and then smaller objectives within each scene that lead to actions. And we always use action verbs that are moving us forward, and that are dynamic. And I think the ing, Jason, I think you're right about that.
Thanks.
Great. All right, everyone thumbs up?
Yeah.
Got it? Okay, thanks, guys. So on to the objectives. So the draft objectives, just as a reminder, we have several inputs for each key element of RVAgreen 2050. We have equity, climate action, resilience, and it's a lot to remember all that goes into all of those categories and incorporate. So one of our roles is to help you with that. And we talked through the equity screening tool 2 meetings ago. And at our last meeting, we went through the climate vulnerability and risk assessment together. And we'll be bringing more information on the results of that back to you at the next meeting so we can use it to draft our strategies. And another input that we'll bring to you in more detail for our next meeting is the greenhouse gas emissions modeling that's being conducted right now by a consultant called GreenLink Group. They're looking at what our emissions are now and what they are projected to be in the future if we don't take any action, and what we could reduce them to if we take ambitious action, starting with the plan we're creating with you, RVAgreen 2050. So we'll talk more about that at our next meeting, but for today, we're staying at a higher level. So this slide is just kind of listing all of that out, what I just said, showing you some examples of what, screenshots of different plans and supporting documents that we're using kind of behind the scenes that we'll share with you at the next meeting. And so then in addition to these Richmond specific inputs, we're conducting research on best practices from peer cities and their climate action and resilience plans. And we'll share more of those with you as well. Oops. Huh. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of aligning objectives, this is where we're getting to now, is to talk about the objectives that fall under our pathway of waste reduction and recovery. The three main inputs for our process so far to draft some objectives within the waste pathway are the Richmond 300 Master Plan, the greenhouse gas emissions technical modeling, and examples from peer cities. So now we need your input to refine what we've created, which are just starting points. And the objective statement is to clarify what, so we're going to clarify the goal of this exercise, but I just wanted to show you here under Richmond 300 on the left. Ooh, I'm sorry, it looks like I have a typo there. So on the left where it says diverse economies tourism, that's supposed to say Richmond 300. I apologize for that. So under there, some of the things that are in Richmond 300 that relate to waste, or all of the goals and objectives that relate to waste in Richmond 300 either fall under diverse economies or thriving environment. And so then under there, the Richmond 300 comprehensive plan does mention things like zero waste in city operations, working on the residential and composting and recycling, looking at construction and demolition waste, creating a pay-as-you-throw program, permitting, sustainability legislation, adopt a street program, green business program, more about the solid waste infrastructure. And then under the green link modeling that we're doing, when we're actually looking at carbon emissions, those all fall into kind of under some buckets like optimized trash and recycling infrastructure, enhance curbside recycling and composting, again, construction and demolition waste recycling, unit-based pricing, municipal sustainable purchasing policy, circular economy, and then some of the peer city climate action plan objectives mention things like biogas capture, again, composting and recycling, and waste construction waste diversion, green purchasing, zero waste legislation, emergency preparedness. So that's the level that we kind of want to be thinking about today. So to get it, that's what was used to get us where we are now. And so these are the draft objectives that our staff has kind of put together. They're simply draft, and there's a PDF that was attached late yesterday in an email with, it's just a 2-pager. If you have that and you want to kind of use that as we go into our breakouts as a reference, those 4 objectives are listed together on that PDF. But what we came up with is lead by example in reducing municipal waste streams, reduce upstream emissions, and that kind of gets at the circular economy conversation, reduce organic waste, and reduce solid waste. These are not final. They have a long way to go. And so as we go into them, I'll explain the exercise, but each of we are not stuck on the number 4. This could be 2, this could be 10. It's whatever makes the most sense to put work for our unique community and get the most buy-in from our stakeholders. So let me show you the difference between objectives and strategies. We will be talking about strategies next time, and it's really easy when we start talking to jump there. But keep it float up, because we want to make sure we have these overarching objectives that all of our strategies will fall under. So on the first one, lead by example in reducing municipal waste emissions. An example strategy could be something like implement a wastewater biogas program that captures 100% of treatment emissions. For reduce upstream emissions, an example strategy under there could be something like support local circular economy programs and initiatives. For reduce organic waste, a strategy could be prevent food waste through the implementation of a residential food composting program. And reduce solid waste, and example strategy would be promote alternatives to building demolition and implement construction and demolition recycling. So those are just kind of the difference. We want you to stay up a little higher, make sure that our objectives are really covering everything. And I can tell already that y'all have this because that we had a great discussion already. So on this activity, we are going to be breaking up into 4 groups. Brianne is going to send everyone into one of 4 groups, and you're going to stay with that group for the next hour. We're running a little behind, so we're going to move this along. Then I'm going to there's a Google Google Slides. I think the link should be in your chat, and you're going to open that, and all 4 objectives are on the one slide deck. So I'm going to be focused on objective 1, Wendy's with 2, Jason is with 3, and Priscilla is 4. And then we're going to have 15 minutes per round to go over the draft objective. And then that facilitator is going to move to another room, and they're going to take that slide with them. They're going to continue to focus on that slide. And so when you get your new facilitator, they're going to ask you to then look at whatever the next objective is. And all the comments, we're going to ask you to double click in the Post-it note, type in there, drag stars, put comments at the bottom, make this your own. And those comments are going to stay there. So as the facilitator takes their slide to the next group, it's going to build on each other. So you can see what the previous group said. And after the hour of the shuffling of the 4 groups, we'll have some awesome feedback. So as you're looking at these objectives, is the objective statement overarching yet explanatory enough? What's missing? How could it be said better? And then once you get through all of that, if you've really decided you've got it covered on the objective and there's time left, go ahead and you can start thinking about strategies and putting them down in the comments section. So we're supposed to take a 5-minute break now, and then we'll go back into the breakout session. So go ahead and do that, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
All right, if y'all want to take a break, I'm just going to work on this timing, which I can. So we have, I'm going to do 13.75 minutes for each one.
I think we're okay because yesterday there wasn't a whole lot of discussion at the end.
Yeah. And I'm going to give like 5-minute warning and then 1 minute before I move people.
Okay, great. I'll be back.
Okay, and I'm going to pause this.
I guess we move faster than everybody else. My team is number 1.
Yes, you won.
Well, we're number 4, objective 4, but we're number 1 on the board. This says I have to go through enrichment though, Torrance.
That's just to get the funding. I mean, not the funding, for
Pay
you to
them.
pay through.
Okay, there's no link to tell me how to do it, so I'm just gonna call Paige.
Okay. All right, guys, this has been great. I do have to run now though, so I'm gonna cut out. Bye.
All righty.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone who participated in that activity. Let me see if I can just pull up our last slide here. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm just going to talk about this. Homework is to continue working on that draft objectives Google Slides until close of business Monday. If you have more brainstorm, light bulb moments, feel free to go back in there or go back in and see what the last group said on top of your comments. I know that mine just built on each other beautifully. So I really hope that that all 3 other objectives were clarified as well as my first one. The next meeting is drafting strategies in 2 weeks. So we will continue the conversation. So be thinking about those strategies that are going to fall under those objectives that we defined today. And there's a survey again in the chat. Please, we would love your feedback on today's meeting. What could we, what did you like? What could we do better? And then certainly want to give you an opportunity to share any updates, upcoming events, and resources. I know Tracy has a big event going on that she would like to promote, right?
I do. You want me to talk now or just send it out in an email?
Well, let me first.
I want to hear it.
Yes, I do want her to say it, but I also want to just give a 30-second stage to anyone who has any reflection on that activity that you'd like to share with the bigger group. Because I know you are in small groups. Any big takeaways that you want to share with everyone else? Okay, Tracy, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. And I won't be long because I know everybody has a lot to do. So Keep Virginia Beautiful typically does an event in the spring, early, called Shiver in the River. And we're not doing that this year for lots of reasons. So lucky for all of you all, I'm not going to ask you to jump in the river with us. But we are doing a COVID-19 safe activity throughout the month of March, where if you register, you donate $20.21 to KVB. Obviously, this is a fundraiser to make up for the loss of Shiver in the River. But hopefully that's accessible for most. It's a small donation. You actually get a free Virginia State Parks parking pass with that donation. And then you also get, as we get to February 27th, March 1st, we'll send you a code and you can log on to this website, and every time you go out and pick up a bag of trash or sit down and play in your garden or take your recycling to the recycling center, anything green to make things more beautiful, basically doing a beautiful act. If you log it on this website, you get entered to win cool prizes like cabin rentals at Bear Creek State Park. We've got some the Virginia Beach Aquarium tickets for a family of 4. We've got lots of cool things. They're all obviously green businesses and very tourism, parks oriented, so all very fun. And we really just want to bring attention to how awesome Virginia is and get everybody out there making it spiffy and clean for everyone to get out because everybody's been cooped up, and I think our parks are going to be mobbed. So after a month of doing beautiful acts, we hope everybody continues to do that. We hope it creates a habit where you're picking up trash every time you go out, and especially in our parks, because there's a lot of folks out there that don't understand leave no trace. So hopefully we're going to educate the public on that through this program and clean up Virginia. So I will send around, I'll put the link, it's actually on our website, keepvirginiabeautiful.org. The events tab, Shiver in Virginia, and you can register now, but the actual picking up part doesn't start until it actually kicks off on February 27th, which was Shiver in the River date, and then it continues through the whole month of March. Anytime. All right, that's it. Thank you guys. I appreciate it so much.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Cool.
Thanks.
Okay.
I just put a link down there in www, but the Virginia Native Plant Society, please find and join your local chapter. Pocahontas is ours. There's a meeting every Thursday, every month. Check it out.
Thanks.
Awesome. And Kim Hines isn't here today, but she is the director of CBWMA, who manages our recycling contract for the whole region. And she is going to be giving us a presentation on Friday the 26th, I believe at 10 o'clock, to talk about recycling and answer everyone's questions. And, it'll be really helpful. I know I get a lot out of those kinds of conversations with the experts.
Tell me about that again.
This is just to save the date at the moment. I don't have any more specifics than that. It's going to be Friday, February 26th at 10 o'clock. More to come.
Great.
Thank you. It's been
All
fun
right,
today.
thanks.
Thanks, you
Bye.
guys.
Really appreciate it.